Until the ninth seat is filled, there are concerns over how the Supreme Court works when there are only 8 justices. Lawyer Wendy Patrick joins us now to explain it all. Wendy, good morning.
Good morning, Raul.
Okay, and in fact, Senator Mitt Romney just came down and said that he is going to make the vote if necessary, if the person has a qualification. So that was a big announcement just earlier this morning. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it was a big announcement because remember, Raul, there's a reason that we have 9 justices and not just 8. Remember what Justice Ginsburg herself said 4 years ago, 8 is not a good number. And that's true. It's not a good number for anyone because shorthanded means short-sighted, meaning the court cannot decide the tough cases if in fact it's going to be a tie. And all we have coming down the pike, according to many of the people who've been watching this for years, is tough cases, not to mention the fact, Raul, that as a co-equal form of government, they would be pretty much out of commission judging what could be a contested election. Remember Bush versus Gore. And so how can you have one branch of government basically handicapped, unable to judge another branch of government, i.e. what the voters are voting right now, the executive branch? Yep,
and people are already kind of going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps forward like a chess game and thinking this would potentially lead to essentially a constitutional crisis if that were to happen down the line.
Well, exactly, but it could happen sooner rather than later, Raul, because remember, if it's a contested election now in November and we don't have a full-strength Supreme Court necessary to decide that issue, what are we going to do? Now, it's a different scenario if the Supreme Court is simply ruling on what lower courts have found. Because if it's a 4-4 split, basically the lower court ruling stands. And that's not optimal, because what does that do? It prevents precedent. And that's why we have the highest court in the land, is to make precedent that's binding on all of the courts in the land. But if it's going to be 4-4, we don't have that opportunity. So this is one of the reasons you see many people pushing forward. Obviously, I know it's the Republicans, but the Democrats would be doing the same thing if it was in their, if the ball was in their court. We want to have a full strength court in order to make those tough calls. It's one of those things that it happened 4 years ago. It's happening again now. But we don't want to just have cases deferred or have lower court rulings stand. That's why we have a Supreme Court, is to do its job at full strength, and that's what people are pushing to do.
And that's why they made it to the Supreme Court. In terms of the impact on 8 justices and the pending cases, where do those stand?
Oh, well, where those stand is on calendar. And that's another problem, Raul, is that because this was unanticipated, there are some very significant issues that are set to be discussed. Some of the cases in the queue include cases on the Affordable Care Act, cases about whether or not the grand jury investigation reports in the Mueller probe are going to be able to be present and made available to Congress. Some very significant decisions. And we don't just want to defer all of those until we have 9 justices. These are very important issues that everybody would like to see resolved one way or another. So that's just another reason you see Republicans pushing at least for a nomination, for a confirmation hearing, and ultimately for a confirmation.
So you're saying that this does play a role in the rush, if you will, to fill the vacant seat, because not everybody's saying this is all political. He's trying to win Florida with the nominations and this and that. It's not just that. There's more to it.
There's more to it in theory, and this so goes the argument on both sides. Everybody understands that you want a 9-person Supreme Court, but politically, because you asked, politically, right now you have a 5-3 split ideologically. You have conservatives versus liberals, and then of course you have Chief Justice Roberts that often swings the other way. With another conservative justice, you would have a 6-3. What does that mean? That means a 5-4 majority would no doubt be a conservative majority. Why is that so important now? Because remember Bush versus Gore, that was a 5-4 decision. And many on the Republican side are worried because it's a contested election. You have things like balloting, mail-in ballots, all the kinds of issues that we've been talking about for weeks. They want to fill that seat with a conservative that's just because if Roberts goes the other way, they'll at least still maintain that conservative majority on an issue as important as the presidency.
There was talk about adding more justices. I don't think that's been done since Civil War, maybe after the. Can that happen?
Well, we've been talking about court packing on and off over the years, forever. I mean, decades and decades of talk. But we've remained at a 9-court Supreme Justice for a long time. Now, I know it's true that there have been cases where one of the justices have recused themselves, and that has, again, been a 4-4 split or just an 8-person court, but that's never been optimal. Court packing is not optimal, but remember that it depends on who you ask, because it's true that there are some of the Democratic side that are saying, well, that would allow a more evenly split court. We could have some of these cases heard more. There'd be more diversity on the court in terms of ideology and politics. But it's an argument, and it'll probably be more of an argument. We'll probably be talking about it on the show if, in fact, a nominee is confirmed. Because remember, that's the president's challenge right now. He has to nominate somebody that's confirmable. Doesn't have many votes available to be lost on the Republican side, so
Correct.
he's probably going to be looking at somebody more middle of the road than way off to the right.
Yeah, and going back to what Mitt Romney said this morning, the person would have to have the right qualifications. Before we let you go, I mean, I know we kind of addressed this. Do you see any kind of scenario where the election could essentially, again, be decided by the Supreme Court? I think in 2020, if we had what happened in 2000 with that 5-4 Supreme Court vote to do a recount, Bush-Gore, I don't know what would happen if that happened today.
Well, I think the short answer to your question is yes, because we do have, first of all, we know it's going to be close, and we know that because of the polling that we have. Secondly, we know that because of the distrust that many people have in polling, which leads them to believe that the president has more of an advantage that's being reported. Add to all of that the concern over mail-in balloting, the accuracy, the oversight, all the types of things that people are talking about. So yes, in a word, I do think that this is one of those times that you want one branch of government, the judicial branch, at full strength to judge the election results of the executive branch. We can't have them out of commission now at all times. So this is one of those times that there is this rush to fill the seat, probably even more so than there was in 2016.
All right, Wendy Patrick, as we say in TV, stay tuned.
Okay. Thanks, Raul.
Thank you, Wendy.